this video, we're going to be doing my November wrap-up. I read a total of 7 books in November. It's a pretty good reading month. They're pretty good books. I've noticed kind of a bit of a trend at the beginning of the month. I've kind of noticed a bit of a trend at the beginning of the month that I kind of don't read a lot of books, and then I feel like halfway through like, oh, I really haven't read a lot this month, and then I'll get a burst of energy to read a bunch of books and have some really great reads, and then I end up reading quite a few books in a very short amount of time. So I just want to share some of these books with you. The first book I read in the month of November is The Heart of Betrayal by Mary E. Pearson. This is the second book in the Remnant Chronicles. This is the same author who wrote Vow of Thieves and Dance of Thieves on my shelf here. It's set in the same universe. So this is basically kind of a prequel to that series. This is follows the king and queen that Cassie in the Vow of Thieves duology serves. So you kind of see how that kingdom came to be. This is the second book in the series, so I don't really want to spoil it. It's a trilogy. It's a pretty good read. I think I rated it 4 stars. It's very enjoyable. It does take me a little bit to get through these books. They're like over 400 pages, which isn't a long book, but just the pacing is very good. This one dragged a little bit because I found recently with a lot of fantasy trilogies, the second book is usually the hardest for me to get through because it typically takes a longer bit of time. It goes like, it's the middle of the story, so there's more of a kind of like waiting period between the fast action of the first book and the obviously cumulative action, final action in the last book. So this one was kind of the same, a little bit of a slower pace, but I really do like the characters and I'm very interested where the story's going to go because I don't remember certain details about the universe in Vow of Thieves and Dance of Thieves. So like just how certain details that I can't recall, which I don't want to check because then I want to be surprised for this one. I'm very excited to get the last one and finish this series. It'll be very nice, but it was a nice read in November. This was the first book in the series, Kiss of Deception. I read this one earlier, and I really love in a series, I just have to say this, I really love how the covers clearly go together, but they're very distinct. Like green is the first book, orange is the second book, and I think it's like a dark blue will be the next book. You can see it there, but I just love that. I love when series do that. So yes, this was my first read in the month of November. My second read in the month of November was actually a play. This book is both 2 plays, The Misanthrope and Teartuff. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. It's a very easy read. It's a play. It's rhyming. It's just very witty and funny. I really enjoyed it. I read both of these plays ages ago. I only reread The Misanthrope in the month of November, but it's just really just a great, I really love just this book. It's just so funny. Again, it's so quick. I can't really describe the plot because I won't do it justice, but it's so humorous. It really is. So if you're looking for like a quick humorous read that's probably not something you typically read, like I typically don't read plays, but this was just really funny. The Misanthrope, very, very good. So I really enjoyed that reread. I love being able to balance my TBR. I know a lot of people, they'll do like the TBR cart and stuff like that. I find that I like to read a lot of different types of books, different genres and stuff. I really like to have that bit of variety. So I like to have a fantasy, I like to have a reread, I like to have a sci-fi and stuff like that. So that's kind of reflected a little bit in the books I read this month. On that note of having variety, the next 3 books that I read are in the genre of, I guess, mystery thriller, but they're all in the same series. So last month, in the month of October, I read The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This was a series that I hesitated and gave picking up for a long time. I know a lot of people have talked about it, but people talk about it and they don't really say anything else about it, so I kind of just like, whatever. But then I watched someone describe it, who actually provided a summary of it and like described how it was, you know, young adult teenagers solving crimes in the FBI, and they compared it to a couple of crime shows. And reading it myself, it finally inspired me to get it, and reading it myself, it kind of reminds me of the show Bones, which I absolutely love. So I picked up that. I read that last month. It was a 4-star read. The only reason it wasn't a 5-star for me was because the love triangle between Cassie, Dean, and Michael, I don't care for love triangles at the best of times, and that one was just kind of very cliche and very like, here's the new girl, let's fall in love with her. It was a little weird. Like, it was kind of overdone. That was the only reason it wasn't a 5-star, but the actual plot and just how invested I was in it was good enough to make me really want to read the series. So I picked up the next book in the series, Killer Instinct. And basically, so because this series is talked about so much, I feel like it's safe to provide a little bit more details about it. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, obviously, but if you haven't picked it up yet, it's probably because you might be like me and because people talk about it but don't provide enough details for you to feel like it's safe for you to pick up. Because I know for me, like, I didn't know certain things, and because certain things weren't said about it, made me think that maybe this wasn't going to be the book for me or the series for me. Here's the thing to know about it. The way that these, first of all, the premise, teenagers solving crimes for the FBI, sounds very flimsy, but remember that it is a young adult book, and the way they do it and have them be naturals at what they are, like they're naturals at like reading a crime scene or someone's telling a lie, the way they have it and the way the adults treat the teenagers is it's as realistic as you can get with a premise like this. So that was really well done. Another thing to know, that kind of each book, when I read this one, I got really excited because if you consider the first one being like about Cassie, then this one would be about the character Dean. And I got really excited about finishing this book because then I thought that would mean that every book centered on a different character in the cast of the Naturals. And when I realized there were only 4 books, I was like, oh, well, that obviously can't be it. It definitely is it. Everyone's backstory is touched upon at some extent, and it just continues the feeling of making it feel like they're all main characters, because they're all the main characters, and I just love them so much. So the mysteries in all these books were top notch, were very good. You felt very invested in all of them. I got all the series because after I bought this one, after I finished it, I went to the bookstore to get a different book and they didn't have it, so I decided, well, you know what, I'm here, I might as well just get the rest of the series. And then I promptly read these in like less than 3 days, both of these books. It was really, really good. I had so much fun with it. So the mystery in all of them was great. If you're hesitant going to the series, here's something that I look for in the difference between a mystery and a thriller. Is a mystery you're kind of meant to be able to solve, a thriller not necessarily. But something I personally look for when reading a mystery and a thriller is feeling like I'm a part of it. I want to feel like I'm a part of the characters, like I'm solving it alongside them. Sometimes in the name of suspense or a surprise, a writer will kind of keep the audience back and keep information back so that you don't figure it out, and that can feel very it kind of breaks up the experience. But these books, I felt like I was with them. I felt like I was one of the Naturals. I love the characters so much. I love their dynamics. My favorite book in the whole series was definitely All In, because it does center on she's probably my top favorite. I mean, I love them all, but Sloane is just one of my favorites. She is such a great character. She is neurodivergent representation. We love her so much, and this book just was heartbreaking, but it was like peak, like their friendships definitely solidified in this book. And then after, of course, I read this one, I did go into the last one in the series, which was probably, if you want to say, the most far-fetched not far-fetched, the mystery was pretty intense. It definitely was kind of full circle, kind of a lot of details from, because you love the character so much, it worked. Okay, I just really liked it. And this one, I was a little intimidated because it was so much bigger, and usually if the sequel in a series is so much bigger than the other books, you know some things are going to go down. But this one actually just has a novella about the characters a few years later in it, which was pretty awesome. So I just love the characters so much. If I had to rate these books individually, I would say this one was also a 4-star. This one was a 4-star. This one was the 5-star. This one was my absolute favorite. Just perfection. So yeah, I definitely loved this series. This is definitely a highlight of the reading month, maybe the reading year, because these characters are just so good. There's something very satisfying about when you finish a series and the whole series just feels so good. Another thing I will say, that if you have been hesitating picking up this series because you're like me and you don't have enough details to feel like it's a good purchase, like I said in the first book, the love triangle was overdone, but what I really appreciate about this series is that once, like, I guess you could say Cassie picked her guy, like, the drama was kind of over. Like, there's no, you know, switching, there's no sort of angst regarding who she ended up with, which maybe you might like that if you're reading a romance. I personally don't like that, so I really loved that once she got in a relationship, that was it. Like, there was no sort of relationship drama, and we could just really focus on the cast as being friends and found family. Like, that was really good. So yes, these 3 books were a definite highlight of the month of November. Super, super, super happy with them. Next book I read in the month of November is another, wow, this was really, looking at it, this is just really kind of continuing on in series. This book is the sequel to Blood Like Magic. It's called Blood Like Fate. I must show you the cover of Blood Like Magic because it's absolutely gorgeous. Are you ready for it? Again, with the series, the different colors, but clearly the same series. Listen, the first book I read this year in 2024 was Delicious Monsters by this same author, Liesl Sambury. I feel like if you read a lot of one genre, like I read a lot of fantasy, I love fantasy. If you read a lot of one genre, you kind of know the hallmarks of the genre, like what is in each book in that genre, the common tropes, I guess. But I truly believe that if you keep reading that genre, keep reading a genre, every single author brings something special to that genre. This author, what she does best, she knows how to write a main character. In Delicious Monsters, we're given 2 main characters, and that's a different book, separate from this series. But the point of bringing that up is her main characters in that I love so much, and it made me, when that book was a kind of mystery, thriller, sci-fi type thing with a bit of fantasy, it was a really good read. Like, I highly, highly recommend it. It was a 5-star. That book, her main characters and the way she wrote, when I found out she wrote a complete fantasy duology, I obviously had to get it. So that's why I got Blood Like Magic, and Blood Like Fate is the sequel. I don't want to give the plot away, but Blood Like Magic it follows Voya Thomas. She is from a witch family. It's set in like the year 2050, and it's like this lot of technology, sci-fi type setting, kind of futuristic, I guess, but it follows her and the witch community, and she has to pass her calling as a witch. She's been called by her ancestors, like, hey, you have magic, here's what you have to do to prove that you can be a witch. But she's given this task, but the task has some consequences if she can't do it. I'm horrible at giving summaries, but I love this so much. The series is so good. I enjoyed it so much. This one, I think I rated a 5-star because as it is a duology, but this one, if you did, I mean, you could just read this one. It kind of has it ended on a really high note, but I mean, there were obvious consequences with everything that happened, so that I had to get the next one. Obviously, I can't just, if I love a series, I'm gonna complete the series. I can't just leave it off. It was a really good series. This one I think was a 5-star. This one I rated a 4-star. It was a bit slower. It was a bit harder for me to get through just because everything she was going through as the consequences from this book. But again, this main character, I love her so much. She was very real, and like what she was like in this book and kind of her transformation to go to this book was quite something to follow. The light went a little bit weird. I'll try and fix that. Another thing about this book, the representation, both of people of color and of gender identity, was just really top notch. Just so much fun. Like, I just had such a great time with these books. And if you were looking for kind of a little bit different but unique but still so much fun, a fantasy sci-fi type book, you should give it a try. Because first of all, just these covers are beautiful. These covers are to die for. The colors, everything. So awesome. So yeah, this was my read of November. It's 3 o'clock, so obviously the sun is going down, and that's why the weird lighting. But I have one more book to talk about, so we will try to wrap this up. The last book, and I literally just finished it this morning. It's the 30th of November. I literally just finished this morning. Is The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd Jones. I think this year I've really found how much I appreciate a one and done fantasy, and this book falls into that category. Here's how this book, I found this book, it was recommended on a forum compared, it was recommended alongside Six of Crows, which is another duology I absolutely love, like The World of Shadow and Bone, love it so much. It was recommended alongside Six of Crows for the same type of feel, and also for the disability representation. This book, here's how it's described on the back: equal parts classic horror novel and original fairy tale. If that wasn't enough to convince you, here's how another author described it on the recommendations on the front cover. Grimm Brothers, the Brontes, and Neil Gaiman. Like I was like, obviously, like I found it in Barnes & Noble and read that, and I was like, well, now obviously has to go in. So this book takes place in this little hamlet. Our main character, Rin, she is a gravedigger, but the dead in her town have a tendency to rise, and it's only if it happened in the forest where the townspeople have to go in and kind of cut down these bone houses that rise out of the ground. But something has changed, and she and this map maker who came to town have to go in and try to figure out what's happened and stop it. That's kind of the gist. I don't want to give too much away because it's such a good read. It definitely is like a fairy tale. It, at the end of the book, it just kind of leaves you with this, everything was set. Like, I love a series. I can get invested in a series. The more books the merrier, but there is something so special about when a book just ends and everything's wrapped up. That fairy tale ending where it's all wrapped up, the journey is over, there I live happily ever after. Like, it was just so good. I love it so much. I've been thinking about it all day. I think it's a 4.5 stars for me. When I rate books, I try not to, like, I don't do the 3.75, like 75 point whatever rating. I'm not very good at rating things. I kind of had a hard time like ranking what I like, so I tried to been working on that because like it's fine. When I rate things, a 0.5 for me just means that it's very special. It's not like it's halfway to a 5, it's just kind of like this extra special thing. So I'm rating this a 4.5 because it's a 4-star read, but it just has something a little bit special with it that just made it such a great, engaging read. And yeah, I love it so much. And there's something very like mesmerizing about the cover. I don't know, but yeah, it was so good. That is all the books that I read in the month of November. Here they all are in order. When I read books and finish them in a month, I kind of keep them just on like one random shelf on my thing to kind of stack them up as I go. And now that it's the end of the month, I get to do my favorite thing, which is take them off that stack and shelf them in their appropriate spot on my shelf. So I'm going to do that. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a comment down below. What books have you read this month? Have you read, is there a book that you're looking forward to reading? I just love talking about books and would love to hear all about it. Thank you so much. Happy reading.